All right. Not to take away your attention, that's why we're going to quickly move to our next panel discussion, which is going to talk about content as a driver for business and brand growth. Can we please readjust the chairs on stage? Wonderful. All right, just once again, vibe check. How is everyone doing? Great. Okay, these set of people are very responsive. I don't know what happens to the left. How are you guys doing? Great. All right, perfect. So, ready for the next one? We have some stellar panelists coming on stage, so please join me in first welcoming our session moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Preeti Oza, Senior Vice President, Content and Partnerships at FCB India, and we could do better with our applause, yes? Welcome, Preeti. I'd also like to welcome to the stage now our panelists for the session, Neha K. Bisht, Founder and CEO Blue Buzz. Make some noise. Welcome, Neha. Joining her on the panel, we have with us Akash Mishra, AVP Group Brand Marketing, Dornier Group. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Very well, Akash. How are you doing? Good to see you. On the panel, we are also joined by Isha Datta, Senior Vice President at Ogilvy. Let the rumble happen, come on. Joining them on the panel, we have Tabassum Modi, Content Head at PhD India. Welcome. On the panel, we are also joined by Shagorika Hiryani, Founder Athena. Put your hands together and welcome. Joining them on the panel, we have Punita Parekh, Founder Social Shout. And last but not the least, please welcome our panelist, Shivangi Shekhar Srivastava, Founder and Chief Creative Strategy Officer, Chord Agency. A very warm welcome to all our panelists. Over to you, Preeti. And sorry to remind you, but we are short on time.
I'll try and be quick, but I don't promise. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the youngsters here. I hope the energy is high. Can I hear you guys? Yes. Lovely, lovely. A round of applause for y'all. Lovely to meet all the panelists. Looking forward to this session. So I was in fact telling Punita that, I'm coming from a background where I want to obviously learn more perspectives, right? I mean, we do face content, AI, day-on-day basis, right? But I think perspectives differ. So would love to hear what you guys think, right, in the content world that you're operating. So straight away into the conversation. I think brands today, right, are creating a lot of content. There's already content out there, but I think the brands are actually creating a lot more content, maybe 10 years from now, 5 years from now. And the question is whether it's getting noticed, right? The question is whether it's making the impact, correct? Should content really be brand first, or should it be something that I want to watch, right? And probably creates that emotion with a brand. I mean, that's where we are, right? Also, you have those rules. Brands need to reflect 3 minutes within the screen, 5 minutes within the screen. Do we really need that? And I think the bigger question that we're wanting to address through this panel, right, is how do we know, right, which content really drives growth, which content really drives business, right? I think that's where we are. So yeah, I mean, those are the questions coming from me, guys. I'm looking forward to an interesting responses from you all, right? I'd like to start with Isha. So Isha, how do you really evaluate, an idea, right? Whether it deserves to be a film, whether it deserves to be a web series, whether it deserves to have a social moment, right? Talk us through that thinking, right? How do you make that decision?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm so glad to be here. And it almost feels like the Gen Zs can judge us, so we'll try our best. Yeah, so there are lots of brands, lots of communication, lots of clutter. So therefore, the real challenge today is how can we show up differently? How can we be disruptive? How can we grab attention of people? When it comes to attention, I know we talk about Gen Zs, but generally there is a fatigue when it comes to attention. So brands need to be very clear on the objective they have put out for themselves, whether they want to, get immediate attention, they want to make an announcement, whether it's a launch, whether it's a promo. That definitely needs a short-term communication plan, right? So could be a campaign, could be an ad. But I would approach this question slightly differently. Brands today have a responsibility as well. While we are, of course, as a brand, we are going to talk about a product benefit and and the value that we are bringing to the consumer. But as a brand, are we able to make a change for the society? Are we really able to drive behavior change or get people more into culture? Some of our panelists earlier were talking about purpose. It's very important. And if you cannot do that, eventually you join the fatigue game, right? You do not disrupt and you do not show up for yourself. When you want to do that, you have to think of long term. So anything that drives behavior change, anything that drives value, anything that drives purpose, will definitely need a longer term proposition. In short, anything that needs to be said in the first 6 months, you want quick spikes, you go short term. Anything that can survive more than a year, you go long term. But then the real challenge is how can we therefore as brands have a platform space for ourselves. If I take the example of Dove, Real Beauty is a platform that is timeless, right? I mean, it can go on and on. So the real challenge for brands is to really have a long-term platform and then create short-term communication within that platform. I think that's what's going to drive the engagement and value for consumers.
Interesting perspective. Neha, I would love to hear your perspective on this. Is it short-term and hence ad, and if it's long-term, is it a longer form to look at, or do you think differently?
So yeah, it totally depends in terms of what do we really want to achieve with that content, right? Because when I'm looking at short term, I'm looking at content that will get me the visibility that I need at this point of time, that will get the conversations going. Also depends on at what point my brand is at, so what conversations I need. Long-term content, definitely when I know that long-term I want to build trust with the brand, and that content is going to resonate with audiences over a longer period of time, irrespective.
No, interesting. I think that actually brings me to my next question, right? I think strategy plays a very important role when we're building content, right? Probably we spoke about the format right now. But I think strategy sits at the core, right, of building good content. And the question is to you, Shivangi. I think you breathe strategy day in and day out. What is your thought process here?
So strategy definitely is the base of every creation that we do. And I think we use the term strategy very loosely, right? Like strategy is something that doesn't change. It does not, it's Bible for any brand that we work with. Now, when we build strategy is built on primarily 3 factors. 1, what is the objective? What am I trying to do? Why am I here? Why am I having this discussion? Second one is, who am I doing it for? Who's my consumer? What is their pain point? What are they trying to look for? And why am I doing it right now? That comes from cultural relevance. So if this Bible is already set with us, that this is what I'm trying to deliver with whatever I create, everything comes in sacrosanct. Everything is based on, firstly, this Bible that we set in.
I'll slightly also get into the nuance of this question, right? While I understand that's the broader way you define a strategy, but does it differ when you're looking at a content ecosystem? Are you thinking it differently when you're probably creating an ad, and are you thinking very differently when you're building a content ecosystem? Of course, ad is part of it, but the ecosystem is much larger, right? So how are you thinking there?
So content ecosystem is primarily distribution. That does not change my strategy. it changes the way I deliver it on certain platforms. A part of that is what we know the digital world has so many different things that we deliver content with. Mainline, TVC, ad is all mediums of how I deliver the same message across different touch points. So it doesn't change, it amplifies. And that strategy, like you mentioned the Dove example, the strategy is all like, it's one-liners. Like if I summarize the proposition, it's that I want to make people feel seen. I want to be the brand that gives people the audience that I'm gonna be pro real beauty. I'm not gonna do touches on the ads. And I worked with Dove, so we know we never touched images. You know, it was always real people being shown. Now, the Real Beauty campaign is the extension of it, which I then distribute across digital in a filter format, in mainline, or basically in offline. I do the outdoor experimentation. So my ecosystem brings in or is made of the audience understanding of, okay, this audience will like this part of my campaign, this audience will register this part of my strategic communication. So it just becomes a clear extension of it.
Sure, sure. Punita, would you like to add value? Does it differ when you're building a personal brand, working with founders, customizing it for LinkedIn, right? How are you thinking this differently?
So when I'm working with founders and I'm working with companies basically building their brand on LinkedIn, I look at 3 factors. One is when I'm creating a strategy, I break them down into 2-3 buckets. Suppose I'm building a company's brand, we look at knowledge-driven content. That's one strategy. Second is a lot of companies want to show the culture of the organization, the people at the company. So we show culture of the organization. And the third is people buy from successful case studies. So a lot of companies that I'm working with in the healthcare space, in the auto space, in the pharma space, want to showcase successful case studies. I'll give you a very simple example. I'm currently working for a brand, I'll name it as well. It's called Dhan Shakti. It's a small brand based in Latur. So what they do is they basically provide loans to rural women in micro cities in Latur. So what their main focus was, they want to tap more and more banks to give them loans to those women. So we approached all these women in Latur and showcased case studies on Dhan Shakti's LinkedIn page. The minute we did that, more and more companies, bank companies, BFSI, got inspired. And that's how Dhan Shakti got sponsorship from other banks as well. So hence, case studies play a very, very key role. That's how I normally derive my content strategy on LinkedIn.
Great, great, great. I'm going to come to you, Akash. I think the word is very tempting, and I think it's been spoken in this room quite some time now, I think, almost in all our panels, right? It's the word virality. I think it has a lot of weight, but we would like to understand the meaning to it, right? We've all seen, content sort of that breaks the internet, right? But probably does not break the sales chart. And vice versa, right? So what do you think in this term, right? What is the content that drives business? What should be, a marketer's priority here, right? All people here, who are building brands, what is the priority when you're looking at something like this?
Virality that you said, yes, it is. It's not used loosely, now it's abused. Everybody wants to go viral. The moment, I had marketing for about 16 fashion brands today. And when I meet agencies, and I've met a lot of them, sometimes I also give them a very stupid brief. Give me something viral. So the problem is, everybody thinks that the marketing person sitting on the other side is very smart. Let me tell you, half of them are not. If they understand what is it good for their brand, what might work, like I don't have a framework wherein if I do this campaign, next day everybody is going to be lining up and buying my brand. ऐसे नहीं होता है. The only thing is, you have to understand what is noise and what is not. Like today, I don't know, you have so many kids sitting here. कितने लोगों ने सुबह से at least 100 reel देख ली होंगी Instagram पे. Half of them from brands trying to be we are CSR driven, we are this. The point of a business is, you have a business, you have a brand, you have a product, बेचना है. If you are not able to do that, business will not sustain. So virality happens if your content is good, if the right people are doing it. If you have wrong people doing it and you end up putting in tons of money to push it, you're just helping it fail faster. So virality can happen, cannot happen. I mean, today we've started, like, we are a legacy brand, but I've started exploring music a lot. I did a Farhan Akhtar concert and I'm doing something more I've done with Brian Adams. What I realized is, Himesh Reshamia concert came to me. And me sitting on a high horse was like, "Kaun dekhta hai?" And Himesh went viral. Okay? Then I was looking at myself like, that was a very stupid decision. So today you don't know what can go viral. I don't know what you like. You don't know what I am consuming. So virality as a parameter, I've stopped looking. I'll say that if a Manyavar and a Blinkit can do things together, if brands can come, and even if they put one hoarding somewhere and digital can amplify, now that's virality. That is what is needed. So I don't waste or spend time in finding 100 ideas. I'll keep putting out ideas and see what's working. Something works, I'll put money on it. That's how it is.
So you're saying there's experimentation with real-timeness.
Everybody is. I can tell you, from agencies to brands to marketing heads to strategy, everybody is just experimenting. Kisi ko nahi pata kya chalta hai. Okay? I'm being very honest.
Tabassum, do you think it's the same from a media and a distribution perspective?
So see, I don't think today you can differentiate between virality or breaking the internet and content that has to perform. Every piece of content has to perform. So it has to move the metric as far as business is concerned. Otherwise, the money stops. That's the first thing that stops, right? Media money. So the only thing we could do, I guess, as content marketers is ensure that you're building trust with the audience. So there is that level of authenticity, showing up, speaking the right things, making sure you're consistent, and trying to move the needle a little bit in terms of pushing them one step closer to the purchase process. So things like shoppable content or creator-led content, which is moving you one step closer, encouraging you to make that click, is something that we strive to do, so that there is, like, both ends of the spectrum really get covered.
Very interesting. Something that clicks. I think my next question also sort of, is linked to it, right? What clicks, right? Let's talk a bit about the craft. What clicks? And I'll come to you, Sagarika, with great experience in culture building, right? Behavioral lens. I think craft becomes very, very important, right? What are you putting out there, right? Which is going to give you clicks, like she said. What is your thought process there?
So I think that let's start with an uncomfortable truth. The truth is that the starting point of every brand today is, what can I do to make my brand message more entertaining, more viral? I think that's the wrong question to ask, because that's a brand-focused question. The real question is, what cultural tension exists for my customers that my brand can uniquely solve? And let's pick up some timeless examples and some new ones. You spoke about Dove. Let's look at Zomato, moment marketing. I think in a previous panel it was mentioned. Look at Tanishq when they talk about modern relationships. What are they really doing which is working? What they're doing is that they have found a cultural pattern which all of us feel, but perhaps we don't have a name for it. And when brands find a name for it, something interesting happens. So Dove, for example, understood that our relationship with beauty standards is broken. Zomato doesn't just make food delivery funny. It understood that urban living is anxious, it's neurotic, it's insecure, and they gave it language. But they did it in a way which was fun, so you actually kind of enjoyed it. And I think that's where, so that's where the diagnosis of what's really happening in culture becomes important. And that's when you start doing, in my opinion, three things, and doing them well to create craft. So the first is, storytelling is really important. And the reason it's important is because 5-second attention spans, 3-second, I'm surprised the kids here are paying attention to us. I hope they are, or if they haven't slept off. But, so you need that hook. You need to hook them immediately, because otherwise everything else that you do doesn't matter. And the second thing, which there are two words I hate in marketing, but I'm going to use both of them, authenticity and trust. The worst words that marketers ever came up with, because we don't live up to it, right? But it's really important to build trust, and I have only a single definition of trust. Trust is about respecting your audience intelligence and then creating content which comes from that. So identify the cultural tension and build trust by looking at their intelligence and not treating them as, you know, sort of like people who just take bullshit. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a content panel.
Right, and the third is, I think when it comes to brands, we have become obsessed with the algorithm. Sorry, Neha. But yeah, we do live in an algorithm-obsessed world. But I think a lot of brands are creating content for the platform and not figuring out how to create equity for themselves. So how does it translate back to me? How do you do linkage? You know, so once you figure out these three things, but it all comes from that cultural tension that you can legitimately identify, I think that becomes interesting. And finally, I think culture for brands is such a great territory to really understand and own, because it's the one thing your competitor can't discount. They can discount you on every other way, but culture is where I feel the war is really going to be fought.
Actually, I'll talk on behalf of brands. I'm sorry, I don't know. There's one brand here, but I'm sure there are a lot of other brands here. On their behalf, right, logo becomes very, very important.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very, very important thing, right? The fact that the brand story, the brand narrative has to come through. I mean, to any of you right here in the panel, and I would not pick and choose, any point of view on that?
If you look at some of the best ads that the industry has seen, Pidilite is an example that's coming to my mind. Some of the iconic ads, the brand is not even seen. You only barely see the pack shot in the end of the film, or maybe the logo coming up in the end of it. It doesn't talk about the brand, it doesn't talk about the benefit, doesn't talk about the USP, it doesn't talk about anything. It just sort of gives you the spirit and the vibe of that brand to you. And this is long back, not something that we are trying to identify, you know, Gen Z trends and alpha soon coming after, etc. But essentially, if there is an idea, and somebody said before in the morning also, that if there is an idea and if we can build around that idea, I think nothing else matters. Lots of brands are doing lots of things, but how many brands are really talking about an idea? And definitely, like Shagorika also said, that our job as a brand owner is to really respect people's intelligence, consumer intelligence. And trust me, when we do enough consumer heartbeat, we have seen that consumers are intelligent. They get an idea, no matter which language you speak to them, no matter what the execution is. If your brand has an idea, it always wins hearts.
Great, great.
I just want to add one thing, like 3-4 brands that I resonate with. Like today, you know that when there is adventure sports, kahin na kahin Red Bull dikh jayega. Okay, when you know you're talking about luxury, you will always end up seeing technology and luxury. You'll see Apple. Today, everybody's favorite brand seems to be Dove. So Dove has been selling beauty. Dove doesn't sell anything else. So sabun nahi bech raha, it's selling beauty. So you have to figure out what are you selling. And whether you're selling technology, whether you're selling luxury, Rolls-Royce doesn't sell a car. It's never present in any of the car shows. It's always present in aero shows. Like somebody who's buying a $10 million, $30 million jet, uske liye loose change hai. So where your brand is decides and defines what you are trying to be. So if you're luxury and if you are in a flea market, you're gone. So that's how people, like everybody is super smart. I mean, 3 second, 5 second attention span is of no use. But if you have something that your brand stands for, I remember watching a Google film for 7 minutes. So if you are, people are brand pro today. I mean, if I tell somebody, you don't wear a Jack and Jones today and start wearing Pantaloon, he'll be like, jao idhar se. So they know what they want. So we have to figure out whether with logo, without logo, how do we stand apart? How strong is our storytelling?
Very interesting. So I think what you're saying is the brand has to have a voice, right? Has to create that voice for themselves and then obviously carry it in the relevant spaces, right? And I'll come back to you on this. Sorry, were you adding something, Akash? I'll come back to you on this, Shagorika. I think there is this whole new world of content IPs, right, that we've sort of ventured into. I think in a way they're also placements. But I'd like to understand, right, like the curly tales of the world, figuring out of the world, right, with Rajshamani. I think these are places where people are loyal, right? They're already watching. So do you think it makes sense for a brand to invest in these existing IPs, or should brands be focusing on creating their own IPs, or do they do both?
Yeah, so this question sort of sounds like we have to pick a lane, but I don't think so, but allow me to explain. I think the smartest brands, companies, marketers today, the question that they're asking is, what is it that our brands, that our consumers already trust? And what do they trust us to talk about, right? And so it kind of plays out in two ways. If you look at partnering with existing IPs, there's no doubt they've spent years of doing cultural work. So they've really built that trust. You spoke about Curly Tales. Curly Tales has built authority in food discovery. So if I'm a fintech, if I'm a travel brand, I'm not just getting reach, I'm borrowing, renting cultural credibility, which is really important. So you get distribution, it's a shortcut to trust, and frankly, you show up in a context where people actually already care. Right? So it's great because if you're trying to build velocity for your brand, let's say you're trying to create awareness at scale, you want legitimacy because you're a new brand, or for example, you want to create relevance with an audience you currently don't speak to. So all of these cases, I think it's fantastic. But here's the thing that building your own IP does, which nothing like that. The first is the audience is yours, extremely important. The second is, of course, you build long-term differentiation because you're building that content habit. I think Akash spoke about when I think of adventure sports, I think of Red Bull. So that's a perfect example of how Red Bull's created differentiation by repeatable content behavior. And, so that sort of really starts to matter, I think, for brands. And the way that I look at IP, whether it's building your own or borrowing from somebody else's, is that IP is nothing but a behavior signal. And consumers follow behavior. They don't care about brands. There is not a single consumer, including everyone here, who genuinely cares about brands. We care about how brands behave. So if we like the way they behave, we follow them. And therefore, IP becomes very important because IP is a behavior signal. So it's a pattern that audiences then start to expect from you. So I expect Rolls-Royce at an Aero show because I believe it stands for that, or Red Bull, or Marriott, or any of the guys who have done Michelin Guide, right? So I sort of expect that repeatable content behavior. So the way I look at this question, it's not should I partner or should I build? The way I'll think of it is that what do I want to build? Do I want attention or do I want attachment? So the way I look at it, borrow attention and build attachment.
Very interesting. What do you think about this, Tabassum, with your media experience?
After that very elaborate answer, I actually approach it a little differently. I simply ask the brand, do you have the money to build? Because ideally you should build. Have your own IPs, but IPs are not cheap. And everybody cannot afford to be a Red Bull. And unless you're doing it at that scale, unless you can be a Red Bull, unless you can own something and stand for it and consistently do that over the years, you can't get there. You can't get there by just doing it one-off. You can't get there by doing it cheap. So if you can afford it, of course, build IP. And if you can't, then rent, borrow, tap into someone else's audience ecosystem. But yeah, that's
be realistic. Be realistic with your budgets and sort of strategically plan is where you're coming from. No, very interesting. I'd like to come back to you, Neha. Let's talk about influencer content, right? I think we're all seeing, we've heard 2-3 years back, we don't know whether influencers will work, will not work. But I think today in every marketing plan, in every brand plan, there exist influencers, right? But the challenge is, and a lot of influencers are complaining because I run an influencer division I'm putting out here. They're saying we don't get the creative freedom, right? The fact that the brand dictates what needs to be done is not something that we're comfortable with. So how do you sort of manage a mix where even the brand is happy with their messaging probably, and the creator also gets their freedom? How do you operate in that segment?
Sure. So a lot of this we've already discussed in terms of the content, how that has to really stand out. And for an influencer also, they've probably managed to build the audience because they've created certain kind of content that has worked really well for them, right? So when we specifically work, what we try doing is that I mean, we've had brands sort of completely take over, and they also tell you what frame to shoot at times. But I think that process, and after realizing that it doesn't really work well, right? Because it's somebody else's ideology, and most of the times they've not even considered what the audience of the influencer really wants. And that's like a failed attempt. So what really works is you create like a Bible and understand that what is my core communication, and you stick to that and you give that to the influencer, and then you give them the freedom to create. What will happen is eventually not all your content will look the same, and that will just help audience connect with your brand in the most engaging way. And also, you know, in terms of the behavior that we want from the audience, that is not just to like their content, but also create that curiosity for the brand. So they start looking up for us, you know, in various digital places. That becomes very critical.
Sure, sure. Shivangi, I'll come to you on the same question, right? You've worked with HUL, you've worked independently. How would you put this in a creative manner?
Okay, so we have a very simple template which anybody can use here. This is what we tell our clients as well. We have two segments of where influencers fall in, where our content falls in. One is brand say, and the others is people say. Brand say is what my brand is saying to the world. People say is what people want to tell about my brand to the world. So we ask our brands a very simple question. These people, do you want them to be brand say? Do you want them to be people say? If you want them to be spokesperson, that is brand say, they will do exactly what you tell them. And this is where it usually happens that with Zydus, we do it in nutritionists, pediatricians, because they are representing my brand in a certain way. People say is completely authentic to the people that we work with. We ask our brands and we nudge them, because with Unilever, we do around 300, 400 influencers per brand per month. So that's a very big quantity to look at, right? So we can't dictate every single thing they do, and that's not the reason that we chose them either. They are people who are doing content in a certain way, and we want them to build content in that lens continuously, because that's what is getting the most attraction. Now, what helps us here is the kind of influencers we choose, and we tell brands this, that we see influencer content in general and we think it works best because it has 8% ER, 10% ER, like, you know, oh, ETR is amazing, everybody's watching the content. But if you see on the dashboard of influencers, there is this dropout rate. Where did the user drop? And that will always be the 6th or the 7th second. And our brand is introduced in the 17th second, so nobody even saw my brand. The ER was for the influencer because their content worked, but my brand didn't register at all. So we shortlist influencers who can retain awareness, who can retain engagement after the brand is introduced, for the examples that we take. And if they're able to do that, we give them complete freedom. Of course, there are some places where we interject that you're representing my brand wrong, you're saying something's wrong, but otherwise they have the full freedom.
Very interesting. People say and brands say. I'm going to carry that with me. Coming to you, Punita, if you could tell me, you know, all this influencer content that we create, right? They've in a way become media channels for a lot of brands as well. So do you think organic is the game, or should brands should also push the influencer content that they're creating? I mean,
so again, I'm going to be platform agnostic. Since I work with a lot of founders, mainly on LinkedIn, organic content works wonderfully if you talk stories, if you talk case studies, if you talk statistics, if you talk numbers, because people are buying from authenticity. People are buying from real life stories. So I feel mainly because I'm working on LinkedIn as a platform, organic always wins.
Interesting. Akash, what do you think on this topic?
My point is, I read this last week that 83% of Gen Zs now say that they're content creators. So everybody is a content creator. If you don't like my content, I will not like yours. So it's a very big trap that we are all in. Or all I'd like to say is, out of these 83%, maybe 1% are the influencers that people actually follow. You have to figure out what their audience is, like she rightly said. Secondly, what your brand wants to do. When I created a music video with Tiger last year, the idea was not to give it to and see how many million views I'll get. I put in money in the markets that I know that my audience is in, and then I waited how it will turn out. For a first track, 12 million views and still going strong. It's good. So I've realized that organic will give you discovery, and if you are discovered, then you put in money. Random money will, as I said earlier, it will help you fail faster. And with all of us being content creators and influencers today, start liking each other's posts, maybe you'll get more virality.
Interesting. So you're saying wait for the organic reach to build, and only if you need to sort of make investments, do it wisely.
If it is interesting, people will find you. If it is not interesting, it doesn't matter at all.
Absolutely. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to jump to the last question, right? And I'm going to sort of pose this to each one of you, right? And just one line from each one of you here. We all talk about metrics, right? What metrics should we be chasing, for the content to be successful? What should we be benchmarking? But I think beyond dashboards and vanity numbers, right? What should brands really measure today? That's what I would want to sort of conclude with. Starting with you, Neha.
I think when you even begin to start working on the framework of the content, the main intent is to truly be able to communicate with an audience, right? And sort of we also discussed how our audience today is very, very smart. So from that perspective, true benchmarks are perhaps, is my content really being shared? What is the engagement on my content, real engagement? Is it being saved, which most Gen Zs do now? So apart from just looking at like a number, sort of rush that, okay, we have to chase this million, the intent is we have to truly create the right communication. We have to truly engage with our audience. And also, like how Akash said, when your intent is that, automatically your content starts changing hands by default.
Mine is very simple. What problem am I solving in somebody's life? Everybody here is wearing a suit. I like it because I had a suiting brand. But if I know that you have one black suit and 5 shirts and 2 trousers, if I can tell you there are 10 ways to wear it and I'm solving that problem for you, then I'm a brand that you will keep coming back to. So I need to find out what pain points am I solving for you, and then I'm there.
I think we need to chase brand love, because end of the day, no matter what you do, if consumers don't love you, they don't buy you, because you're not different anymore. Everybody's practically selling the same thing. So just chase love.
I think I'll circle it back to the first question you asked me. We need to move business metrics. And unless we do that, we will stop being relevant. And if content or content marketing has to continue to actually stay, survive, and thrive, we really have to start impacting business. We can no longer look at ourselves as just somebody who's creating conversation or culture, but also somebody who impacts business.
3 metrics that I think are important. Saves, because saves tells you about intent. Organic search starts to tell you about demand. And when you look at shares, that's when you start to see if your brand's sticky. So if I was to look at 3, those would be my 3.
Superb.
Because I've been building a lot of brands over these 6 years for a lot of companies and founders, I have literally failed in the way where people say, likes nahi aa rahe, comments nahi aa rahe, and that's not working. But what really works is when I'm doing an emotional quotient story versus an IQ-driven story. So I would say emotional quotient really works very well.
Great.
So the way that we consume content, one major KPI that we start telling brands to look for is share of voice. how much are you visible, how much, because we have to own the awareness, that 3 second, 5 second that we have. So you have to have enough share of voice, a lot of people talking about your content. The second that most of you touched upon is affinity, because brand affinity is the second thing. It is not measured only in engagement, but it is measured like how many people are loyal to me, sharing my content, saving my content, talking to me like I'm a human, right? Somebody yesterday on the panel said H2H. So how many people are talking to me as I am a human is the second one. And the third one, which is a little offline, but it has an online version as well, is dwell time. How many people are engaging with my brand on the last stage of the funnel? Like, are they spending time on my retail space? Are they spending time on my cart? Are they trying to think of themselves, consuming my brand, wearing my brand, is the third one.
Very interesting. So I think we've had really interesting perspectives here, right from where we said, let's keep experimenting, किसी को कुछ नहीं आता है. So I think that's one big learning curve for me. Second bit, I think, is think beyond the regular metrics, right? Reach, all of that matters, but I think you got to make the needle move for the brand, right? I think that's the second big learning for me. And I think the third thing that I really learned here is that there are innumerable formats. Be strategic about them, be wise about them, and think of budgets like Tabassum said, right? So I think those are three big learnings from me. I would like to actually move into audiences. I'll just take two quick questions, right? I think they deserve some bit of credit as well to hear us. Anyone in the audience, if you have specific questions for me or the panel, I mean, over to you guys. Just two questions, so be the lucky one.
I'll give you 5 words for the question, for 5 seconds of your attention. So go ahead. Anybody has any question? No.
Anyone?
Our next panel is waiting.
Hi, my name is Chanel. I run a marketing and a branding company. Just kind of point in from the logo perspective, and that's something that I wanted to bring up. We've spent a lot of time as traditional marketers, spending a lot of time, effort, money, and energy on trying to create a logo. For us to discuss something like this right now from a legacy brand perspective probably might not be relevant. Does that still hold true for newer brands? Because if we look at, I mean, from a logo perspective, as a brand might not be relevant, but for a recognition, for example, Coca-Cola, any red or white is going to look like a Coke. That's the thing that's going to come in almost all our minds. Is it fair to make that comparison for newer brands as well?
No. So when the example that I gave for some of the iconic campaigns, people have seen, lived, and literally lived those brands for many years, and therefore you know what that logo stands for, what the brand stands for. As I speak, we are currently working on a launch of a new brand, and I mean, definitely your logo has to come up first. But what you must remember is, what does that logo stand for? The logo is not just a design, it is not just a font, it's not just a shape, but what's the philosophy behind that name, right? A brand is essentially a name, right? A logo is a name. So what does that name mean? What's the philosophy behind that name? That you need to establish as you are, launching a new brand, or you're just doing communication for a new brand. Definitely show up, but mean something behind that name. I think that's going to be important.
Got it. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, lovely.
Good afternoon, everyone. It was indeed a great session. Like, I am Adit. So my question to you all is like, what steps does the company take in content creation? Like in terms when company's revenue falls or there is financial hurdles ahead?
Today everything is storytelling. Okay? So the ads and everything is what we want to tell you, but people want to hear from the creators what it is. Budgets are secondary, trust me, that no company, if they've reached a place where they don't have basics to put content out, that means they should shut down. If they have not reached there, then they have to be wise in spending. So content creator is not going anywhere unless they are good. Content is not going anywhere till they are good. It just needs a phone. I mean, today Bhuvan Bam is one of the biggest YouTubers. Usne ek chote phone se start kiya tha, and he still does it with that. And then I know of people who spend 20, 30, 50 lakhs on 10 reels and they still don't go viral. So it's not about, be very clear in what is your story, if it's sticky, and what is your intent. Budgets ho jayega.
Thank you. Let's give a huge round of applause to our panel.
Thank you so much, guys.
Preeti.
Thank you, organizers. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, wonderful audiences. I really had fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, before you go away, Preeti, I'd request you to give a small token of appreciation to each of our panelists, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone in the room, make some noise for our panelists and moderator for that wonderful session. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, insights, and spending this time here with us. Thank you.